Welcome, ladies and gents. Chris Andre here. You can find me at BetBoxing on Twitter. Of course, you can subscribe to the channel. Let's talk boxing. Let's talk about the highly anticipated clash between AMIR KHAN and KELL BROOK. I can't wait for this. This is going to be a technical breakdown. We're going to get quite detailed with some footage. I'm not going to break down every single aspect of their games and their strengths and weaknesses. I'll be here all day. But what I'm going to do is focus first on AMIR KHAN, show you some errors that he used to make and how he rectified those errors with Virgil Hunter. I don't believe Virgil gets the credit he deserves for the fantastic work he did with AMIR KHAN. I'm going to show you some of that stuff now. And then I'm going to show you how perhaps his decline has led to some of those errors creeping back in, and how KELL BROOK could potentially capitalize on that. But then I'm going to show you how AMIR KHAN could potentially capitalize on an error that KELL BROOK makes, and then I'm going to make a prediction towards the end of the video. So stick with me if you enjoy these technical breakdowns. Let's get detailed. Let's talk boxing. Now, I want to start off talking about the green AMIR KHAN. The AMIR KHAN, before he really learned what he was doing in the game. I know he was an Olympic silver medalist, so it sounds ludicrous to say this, but Khan would fight with emotion and he would rely on his athleticism rather than his tactical nous. And we can see here, for example, against Danny Garcia, how when he would jump in, look how he stays in the line. He's exchanging in the shootout. Look at that. Both feet off the floor, jumping in straight lines. He's in that pocket exchanging with Danny Garcia. There's no head movement. There's no coming in at an angle. There's no exiting at an angle. There's no circling around the ring. There's no moving away from that left hook of Danny Garcia. He's coming in and he's throwing shots and getting caught. Now, it's important to say that in this particular clip, I'm showing you the areas where Khan had problems, I guess you could say, against Danny Garcia. I'm not showing you the areas he had the success. He was actually winning this fight up until the point of the knockout. This might not look like it, right? I do want to make that clear, but I'm showing you the cases of errors, the places whereby it proves that Danny Garcia didn't just land a lucky shot. He was looking to time AMIR KHAN, and AMIR KHAN was offering him the opportunity to time him by constantly being in that pocket without any sort of misdirection or deviation from what he was doing, and he was putting himself in danger. And then that happened. Okay, this is the green AMIR KHAN who was making those errors. Now, when Khan began to work with Virgil Hunter, what you saw is a guy that began to understand the tactical elements of the sport more. He would start to mix things up. He would be in and out, and when he was inside, you'd see a lot more body manipulation to stop his opponent from punching with him in the way Danny Garcia was. When he'd be on the way out, you'd see really fast feet, and this is where we've now seen a decline, and we'll get to that later on. But he'd use those fast feet to come inside, back out. Here you see the body manipulation. He'd back out, the opponent tries to chase him, and then suddenly he would mix it up by stepping in. And it's akin in some regards, look at the way he quickly steps out there. It's akin in some regards to, imagine you're chasing a car in a race and you want to overtake that car. But it's like a bumper car, right? You're driving bumper cars, you're trying to overtake each other on a little track. And as you're chasing after him as fast as you can, he suddenly decides that he's going to put on the brakes. Well, if he puts on the brakes when that happens, you're going to go smacking into the back of him. So that's going to affect your ability to then get up to top speed again. Well, the same thing is what Khan does here. He goes from moving backwards quickly and circling around the ring, getting you to reset, forcing you to try and run after him, to suddenly jumping on you and trying to manipulate your body. And that unpredictability can mess up your rhythm. So he's a nightmare to try and get hold of. And this is the AMIR KHAN that I used to always say, with his volume, with his height, with his in and out movement, with his understanding of angles, not getting engaged by losing his mind, getting that red mist. Look at him off the back ropes there. He knew when to engage, when to throw. By doing that, this is a sort of Khan. This is the version of Khan that would have given Floyd all he could handle, in my opinion. He would have given Floyd a lot of problems due to the stylistic matchup. Floyd was a sharpshooting counterpuncher. Look at the volume of AMIR KHAN and the movement. Pinning this guy down, trying to land flush. Everyone talks about this glass jaw. You've got to be a big puncher to be able to take a guy out with a single shot, because it was very difficult to land on this Khan consistently. And the other thing he had was this brilliant varied shot selection. He'd go from upstairs to downstairs. You know, Colazzo would use a lot of tricks that you see in gyms in the United States. He changes the height dynamic, dipping up and down. There he goes, trying to dip up and down, rolling with shots as he tries to do there, getting behind the shoulder. He knows the old tricks of the trade, and he's physically strong. Ask Ricky Hatton, right? Now, he too was past his best here, but you can see Amir Khan can throw shots to the head, to the body, fast, even against a moving target. Look at that shot there with a spin out. Look at the distance he creates in a fraction of a second. Even there, you see when he threw that combination, when there was a moment, there it is there again, when there's a moment where Collazo ducks and perhaps could come up with a leaping hook from that ducked position, Khan puts his hands on him to affect him. Here you see against Devon Alexander, touching, step back, straight away. Lovely shot there to the body and then pulls back. And you can see again, masterful distance control here, but it's a lot to do with, rather than distance control per se, rather than him judging the distance, it's to do with him changing the angle, not getting too greedy with what he wants to land, but landing a shot and then getting out at an angle. You see that? And again, he's circling. As he comes out of the angle, it forces the opponent to reset. So you're dealing with a very, very fast guy who can throw single shots, double shots. There you saw him lead with a right hand. And then he decides to get out at an angle, forcing you to reset your feet to chase after him. Very, very difficult to deal with. This Amir Khan was a world-class fighter, a really difficult fighter to deal with. Look at that. This is the bit where I told you about. You see how he changes that speed from reverse to coming forward? And that is what makes him so unpredictable. However, as time has worn on, Khan's legs have gone. Because the foot speed has gone, what you see is him lunging in without being able to get out in the same way. And this looks a lot more like the Khan that fought Danny Garcia rather than the Khan that fought Collazo or Devon Alexander. And as I always say, the only undefeated fighter is Father Time. Look at the way he's lunging in here against Terence Crawford. This is early in the fight when he's still supposed to be quite sharp. And Crawford's just taking a look, so at the moment he's not countering at all. But you notice how he's stepping back, hands raised, he's seeing all the shots coming. That was a lovely counter, which ends up hurting Amir Khan in the very first round. He drops him. Can you see how much more cumbersome his legs are and how he's still in the pocket? Is this not more reminiscent of the Amir Khan that fought Danny Garcia? There are times here where he actually crosses his legs, almost like he's running after Crawford. You'll see it here. Ready? Watch this. Look at that. Both legs coming forward wide. Looks so amateurish because he's desperate, because his feet don't carry him as quickly in and out anymore. So for him to close that range, he's forced to shift in an uncontrolled manner. This is not a Golovkin type shift, which we'll come on to later when we discuss Kell Brook. This is a shift where he's just jumping in. He's running in because he's desperate. And not only is he desperate to get in quickly, to let go of the hands, which are still fast, not as fast as they used to be, but they're still fast. He also can't get out. He's not circling at the same rate. So while in the past, when he was fighting Danny Garcia, his limitations were due to a lack of knowledge, perhaps, the red mist, the lack of tactical nous, letting his emotions get the better of him. This is down to a lack of physical attributes. I mean, I'm just going to rewind that for a minute. Look at this hook here. This is terrible. What is he doing? He's miles away. It stinks of being desperate, of seeing a shot and not being able to get off because you have aged. Now, bear in mind, this was what, a couple of years ago now? And this was a massive fight. I mean, imagine he'd beaten Terence Crawford, who was one of the top pound-for-pound fighters. Now, why is this significant? Because if Kell Brook is even at the level he was when he fought Terence Crawford, Khan lunging in recklessly in that manner is a potential disaster. Brook has a masterful grasp of distance control and timing. Even now, the first 3 rounds against Terence Crawford, he was winning the fight. He was outboxing Terence Crawford. Yeah, that's right. He was outboxing Terence Crawford, and I'm going to show you the footage here. Now, yes, in the 3rd round, Crawford makes an adjustment. He switches to southpaw, and it becomes more competitive. I felt that Brook nicked that round too, but I don't have a problem if you felt maybe it went the other way. It was a close round. We'll talk about why that adjustment gave Kell Brook problems. It's not just because he went southpaw. Kell Brook comes out of the Ingle gym. They're all switch hitters. We'll discuss that, but what I want you to do is look how Brook is on the edge of range and how he's the one countering Terence Crawford consistently. He was winning this fight. And what cost him was getting caught and not being able to carry the shot. Let's look at it. He outjabs him twice there. He counters him with a jab. And you can see there's a lot of head movement, a lot of shifting, a lot of feints. Look at the way he steps back here, and he's got this complete control of distance. And a lot of people will say, yeah, but Crawford's a slow starter. listen, Crawford is letting his hands go here. He's a slow starter usually because he's taking a look, like I just showed you with Amir Khan. Look at that cheeky little left hook. Here, Crawford was letting his hands go. And post-fight in the changing room, Crawford's exact words were, damn, Kell, your timing, man. And this was right after Kell had said to him, your timing's amazing. And he said, my timing, your timing, man. He was so impressed with Kell. So don't buy into the hype now where they're putting each other down. Or here he is with Errol Spence. Again, just to show you that this was obviously a bit more closer to his prime. But you can just see what I'm talking about here. And you can see it here on the slow-mo. Makes him fall short. Look at that. That's beautiful work. That's lovely work from Kell. And again there. So you know that if you're falling short, if you're lunging in, if you're throwing those weak type of left hooks or lazy jabs, or you're trying to cross your feet and run towards Kell Brook to throw those types of shots without any setup, without any disguise, you are in serious trouble. However, there is a way that you can have success against Kell Brook, and that is via the second phase of attack. So why he pulls back and he's successful in making you miss with that first attempted hook or that first attempted power punch, because he's reliant on his feet and a pullback with his upper body rather than hand positioning. He's not wily. He's not going to hide behind the shoulder. He's not Bernard Hopkins. He's not Floyd Mayweather, because he's not that type of guy. What can happen to Kell Brook is that he can potentially get caught up or closed off in certain areas, and then he becomes a bit of a sitting duck. You see it here with Golovkin too. He throws that hook and Kell pulls and makes him miss. But then as he's turning out, Kell, because he had the ropes behind him and he couldn't continue to exit in that straight line, Golovkin turns with the left hook and he lands with the left hook. Right, so the second phase attack, you can have success. You see it again here. This is brilliant from Golovkin, by the way, because this is a shift that not a lot of people understand what he does. See how he fell short there? And it looks like, wow, okay, he missed. He looks sloppy. But what Golovkin tends to do when he throws that right hand, he actually shifts that right leg forward and gets it on the outside of Kell Brook's leg. He does this a lot. If you want to see him do this in a masterful way, go watch the Proxer fight. And what this does is it cuts off the exit for Kell Brook. This is done by design. When he's entering with that right hand, he's actually ducking in a way where he's protecting his head. That's his method of closing the range. He's not necessarily caring if he lands, but now he's closed the range. And Kell Brook, this is where you see the lack of defense, so to speak, when his legs are out of the picture. He's trying to cover up. He's caught with a big left hook there. He looks panicked, doesn't he? He doesn't look comfortable. This is not Bernard Hopkins or Floyd Mayweather on the ropes. He's just trying to move his upper body, and his hand position isn't great. He gets caught with a big left hook to the body, a big left hook to the head, and he's all over the place. And this is an area whereby if you can get to Kell Brook with that second phase of attack by pushing him back towards the ropes, Carson Jones had a lot of success like this too, whereby he can't escape, you can have a lot of success. So how do you potentially set up your second phase of attack due to errors that Kell Brook makes? So how do you set up a second phase attack against Kell Brook? One of the methods, like I said, is to try and get him up against the ropes or the turnbuckles. That's going to take an imposing guy to do that to a guy like Kell Brook. To cut off the space from behind so that he can't move away. The other way was actually shown to us here by Mark DeLuca. Can you see how when he feints to come downstairs, Kell Brook slightly bends forward? He does this quite consistently, and that makes him a little bit more static. His gloves also come down as though he's looking to intercept the glove. So he reacts. Do you see that? He drops that right glove there as he then tries to throw the jab. Often he'll throw the left jab to try and parry down. And you'll see what I'm talking about here. DeLuca comes low. You see how his hands came down there? And one of the things, Kell Brook's got a lovely uppercut when it comes to launching himself into an uppercut when you're standing up, right? But if you're coming in low the way DeLuca comes in now, he tends to throw straight shots downwards or hooks. So he doesn't really have an uppercut to a low target in the way that Anthony Joshua does, or George Kambosos does, or Mikey Garcia does. So because of that, you can get low and be in somewhat of a safe area against Kell while he reacts by bending forward slightly, almost like he's trying to take his belly away from your fist, which makes him more static. And you saw that low, he came low, DeLuca, and then he threw an over the top shot there and he actually landed. And you see it again here. He ducks as though he's going to throw a shot here, and he actually tries to come over the top. See that? He faked as though he was going down with the right hand, went over the top with the left hand. Kell Brook started to move backwards and it took a lot off the shot, but you could see how he tried it. This time he goes the other way. He throws the left hand to the belly and actually comes over the top with the right hand. If Amir Khan's able to target the body like that and then come over the top with these shots of his where he steps in really quickly, who knows if he's going to be able to land on Kell Brook and push him back. The one thing I would say, though, is this is not typically Amir Khan's game. Neither is his game to push a guy onto the ropes backwards, the way Golovkin cut off the ring against Kell Brook. So stylistically, if I had to pick a winner, based on their last performances, I have to lean towards Kell Brook. It looks to me as though Amir Khan will be reckless coming in and Kell Brook will be able to time him. However, there are question marks about the durability of Kell Brook. And how big are these question marks? Well, take a look at this. I think the weight is going to be a major problem. Not just the durability, but his athleticism and physical prowess. You have to understand, he's been struggling to make 147 since the days he fought Gennady Golovkin, and he was actually talking about competing at 154 after that fight, because that's where he felt more comfortable. Well, to have him at 149 with a rehydration clause, which in my humble opinion should be banned from the sport of boxing, is particularly dangerous. You see, a rehydration clause is essentially a dehydration stipulation, because what you're doing is telling somebody they've got to drain themselves to make a particular weight, and then they're not allowed to drink the necessary amount of water so that they can replenish the lost water in their bodies. Now, a lot of people are saying, yeah, but if you rehydrate too much, you're going to come in far too big. The thing is, water is not a performance-enhancing substance. If it was, drugs cheats wouldn't take diuretics to ensure that they can squeeze into a particular weight. In other words, if your muscle mass and your bone structure can fit within a certain time frame, within a certain weight frame, then you've made the weight. You then should be allowed to drink water so that you're healthy and not just a diminished athlete. That's not good from a sporting perspective, but it's also not good from a medical perspective. This is a study published in the National Library of Medicine from 2005, so it's an old study. It's since been reinforced by a lot of other data. The effects of dehydration on brain volume. They looked at cerebral spinal fluid, and they looked at patients, they carried out MRIs on patients that were dehydrated, and they found that subjects that lost between 2.1% and 2.6% of their body mass due to water loss through sweating were significantly at an susceptibility to brain damage after head injury. Okay, now this is very serious. The changes in ventricular volume caused by dehydration were much larger than those seen in day-to-day fluctuations in a normally hydrated, healthy control subject. To put this to you in layman's terms, imagine you've got a couple of plastic bottles. One of them is half filled with water, the other one's just a fifth filled with water. You put a pound coin in each bottle and you shake the bottles. The one with the least amount of water is going to, you're going to hear the coin rattle a lot harder against that plastic bottle, right? That's essentially the brain rattling off the skull. So when the cerebral spinal fluid is diminished and you don't have time to replenish it, you are putting an athlete's life at risk. Now, God forbid if anything was to happen to a pro boxer because of rehydration clauses, the people that are demanding these rehydration clauses would be putting praying hand emojis all over social media, no doubt. God forbid anything like that was to happen, but the fact of the matter is, if Kell Brook does not get Amir Khan out of there in the first 4 or 5 rounds, I can envisage a scenario whereby he really does begin to diminish quite quickly as an athlete. Additionally to that, if we saw him take a shot in a fight he looked really sharp in against Kell Brook, against Terence Crawford, in a fight whereby he looked good, how would he look a year on with this rehydration clause, struggling to make 149? Perhaps we're going to see another seemingly innocuous shot take out Kell Brook. So my prediction is Kell Brook in the first 4 or 5 rounds, or Amir Khan in the middle to late rounds. I think with this rehydration clause, I think it could very well be an issue, and maybe Amir Khan will get the job done, even though if they're both at their very best and they're both healthy, then I believe Kell Brook gets the win, based on the reasons we've spoken about in this preview. I hope to be bringing an additional video tomorrow where I will be analysing the psychological warfare that has been employed by Amir Khan targeting Kell Brook. I'm not just talking about the fact that he's got under his skin and in his head, but the actual seeds that he has planted, which I think have been genius moves. Thanks for watching, everyone. Take care. Chat to you soon. God